Everyone, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. I'll let everybody kind of get seated. Oh, it's so great to see such an awesome group of people here. So hello, everyone. My name is Deli. I am the president of Tennessee Women in Green this year. My only thing here is one, to make sure the IT works, and to just present our programs person, Sue, because she will present the speaker today. So without further ado. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. How many people experienced flooding last night? Was that? I know, and hopefully not too many of you. So we are excited this morning. We have with us Jenny Shelton. She is from Larkspur Conservation, and they do natural burial. I'll tell you a little bit about Jenny. But I'm just a board member. Jenny grew up in Middle Tennessee and received her formal education from John A. Gupton College in Nashville, Tennessee, where she earned a degree in mortuary science and funeral arts. After graduation, Jenny spent many years at Tennessee Donor Services, guiding families through the donation process. She has worked in funeral homes as a funeral director, embalmer, and crematory operator. She has managed multiple operations, including a statewide cremation platform. Her compassionate, down-to-earth care was highlighted in American Funeral Director magazine. In her role at Larkspur, Jenny uses her extensive industry knowledge, love for the natural world, and care for people to educate and guide folks step by step through the natural burial process. This morning, as Jenny.
Maybe the people on Zoom will see you here, and you can just
Okay,
go through it like that, if that works.
great. So I thought I was gonna have to do all that part and remember, how I got to where I'm today. So I'll tell you a little more personal side of that too. So I got, a lot of people ask me how I got into funeral directing, embalming, and mortuary. I don't have a really beautiful story about that. I wish I did. A lot of people that are in that industry have some really touching story. It's just that I needed a job. And I was looking for something that was 2 years and not 4. I had young children, and I couldn't be a nurse because I don't react good in emergency situations. And that just didn't feel like a good fit for me. And so a friend of the family said, hey, there's a mortuary school in Nashville that you could be a funeral director. And I was like, I don't know, but I always liked anatomy and science. And so the embalming part kind of piqued my interest a little bit. And so I went, and there I was. So I graduated about 24 years ago from the school over here in Nashville. When I went out to look for an apprenticeship, I kind of went in blindly. So I didn't realize that I probably needed to have family that was in the funeral business to get an apprenticeship, or I needed to be a man, because to be honest, it was really hard back then for women to get an apprenticeship. And that's changed a lot. There's a lot more women in the funeral industry now. But anyway, so since I couldn't get an apprenticeship, I went to Tennessee Donor Services and worked there for about 14 years. And then when I turned 40, I decided to pivot a little bit and go back into it. And about the same time, I talked to my friend John Christian, who's our executive director, who we had worked together early on in our careers. And I found out about Larkspur and that he was doing that. And so I didn't email him or text him. I put pen to paper and wrote him a letter. It just seemed like a Larkspur thing to do. I don't know. It just felt right. So I sent him a letter and started volunteering, and said, if you ever have space for me, sign me up. And so a couple years later, he said, that's it. And he didn't have to ask me twice. I've always loved being outside. You know, as a little girl, I played in the woods all the time. I have some land west of here, and keep chickens and bees, garden, all of those things. So it just all kind of made sense that I would get to be outside. and work some from the office too. So I'm really glad to be at Larkspur now. So I'll tell, Larkspur is what's known as a conservation burial ground. So what that means is it's a way for your body to go back to the earth naturally, but also it's in this protected space. So what's special about a conservation burial ground, because there's green burial, which is kind of what we'll talk about more, which is kind of what you're putting into the ground or not putting into the ground. But then conservation burial goes a step further in that there's an easement that's held on this 160 acres of protected space that we have in Westmoreland. And so that easement protects it in perpetuity. So there can never be any mining, subdividing, anything like that. We started with 112 acres, nonprofit. I started in 2013. The first burial was in 2018. And we have 314 folks who have been buried there so far. The majority of what we do is body burial, but we do bury cremated remains too in a special way. But so I'll go through the slides. I'm more of a face-to-face in-person talker, but we'll get through the slides, let you learn a little more about it. And then when we're done, there'll be plenty of time for usually lots of good questions come up out of this. So I'm excited about that part. So how did we get where we are today with the vaults and the burials? So before the Civil War, most families buried their loved ones in little country cemeteries or a church cemetery. And what would happen is usually the women would take care of the person's body and bathe them and dress them. They would, I read some of the Foxfire books and things like that. You read these stories about they just clear off the table, right, and put the person on there, take care of their body. And then some of the folks in the community would go dig the grave. They would ring the church bell, how old the person was, and that's how they knew. Everybody in the community knew probably who had died. And everybody would come together and take care of that together. It was very simple and sweet, but it was a community thing, which is one of the things that we really are trying to do here at Larkspur's, is this community effort for burial. Then what happened is about the time of the Civil War, embalming became a thing. Some of the battlefield surgeons were called in to embalm some folks, mostly officers, to get them back home. And then Abraham Lincoln was embalmed, and he went on the train around to the different cities in the United States and had this big, grand, glorious funeral and casket and was embalmed. And so that was a lot of the first exposure people had en masse to embalming and what that looked like. So it kind of changed what people were doing. Then you think about people are moving out of communities. We don't all live, like we used to, where everybody's there. And then there was marketing from funeral homes, and that probably came about probably after the Depression and things like that. And then you got the funeral parlor where people were sending their loved ones to the funeral home to let them take care of that for them. And so, there was the marketing, the folks that went by with the vaults and things and said, mom will last forever, water will get in this, all of that sort of thing. And so it really changed the way that we do things to where we are today. These are concrete burial vaults. So if you were to go to a conventional cemetery and peel back the turf, you would see something that looks like this because of how close that folks are buried together. We bury enough concrete in the United States every year to build the Golden Gate Bridge with burial vaults. And that's not to mention the metal in the caskets, the embalming fluids, which are harmful to the folks that are using them, harmful to the ground, and all of those things too that go into it. So a lot of resources are used and then just buried. Conservation burial, we aim to bury about 150 to 200 people per acre, where conventional cemeteries bury about 1,000 people per acre. So a lot of people I talk to, they come to me and they say, well, they know they don't want the vault metal embalming because they know that that's not good for the environment. They know that that's has the worst impact on the environment. So then what happened is people are like, well, cremation, the cremation, for one thing, it's the least expensive option, which makes sense. A lot of people I talk to now, they don't have, or they don't want to spend $20,000 or $30,000 on a funeral. And so cremation makes sense to them. And it is body burial and conventional body burial. but it's not the least impactful. You're still putting mercury into the air. The energy that it takes to cremate one person is about what a family of 4 would use in a month. And then cremains are actually harmful. They're not the ashes that you think of. What they are is small bone fragments. When someone's cremated, it's a 2-step process. So there's the cremation part, and then there's the part where the bones are crushed down into little tiny fragments, which is really alkaline and high in sodium. So they're actually harmful to plants. So when you talk about just spreading them out, you know, in a field or they're not good for the plants. So like I said, we do bury cremated remains at Larkspur, but what we do is we don't bury urns or anything like that. They go straight into the ground, but they go along with a soil amendment that that was made for this purpose. That's called Let Your Love Grow, and it helps to mitigate some of those harmful things, and then we bury them into the ground. And families can have the same types of ritual and ceremony that we encourage at Larkspur and aim for. So the least impactful way to go is for your body to just go back to the earth. Conservation burial, I told you about the easement. Green burial, people use the terms interchangeably. And again, the green burial part of things is kind of thinking about what we're not putting into the ground. So people that come to Larkspur and to other conservation burial grounds, there's no embalming, there's no vault, and everything must be biodegradable and compostable. So folks are buried either in a shroud, which I'll show you some photos of, a pine box, or a willow basket. So we bury folks at 3.5 feet deep, which is where the soil is most alive. So your body can readily go back. We're not trying to stop any of that. And then we return all of the soil. So, and we return it back in the order that it goes in. So the topsoil is on top. And then we cover it with pine straw. Family participates in every step of the way that they want to. And we just are there to guide and help them. So I'll show you some photos. So this is a burial at Larkspur. This is the pine box casket. We've been fortunate. There is a man that lives at just west of here, about 30 minutes or so, that is a retired funeral director that makes these pine boxes. So they have no metal, no hinges, nothing. It's all done with wood. And we have willow baskets. So this willow basket was made by a lady in Oregon who also made Moses baskets for babies. So kind of a cradle to grave thing. And then we have a real sweet lady in North Carolina, Sarah Laswell, that has Moss and Thistle Farm that makes willow baskets too. And she also has workshops where folks can come and help make their own. And people do that with her too. So that's another option. And then there's the shroud here. So the shroud is the least impactful, what's going to break down the soonest. And so when a family comes up at Larkspur, and I'll show you some more of that shortly, this is what they would see is the person's body shrouded. We make the shrouds at Larkspur. It's a soft cotton. And what we do is take the shroud to the funeral home, shroud the person's body, and then bring it to Larkspur for burial. So that's kind of the what goes into the ground doesn't go into the ground. So the other big piece of conservation burial and what we do at Larkspur is it's about our engagement with the community and the land there. So the land at Larkspur, the 160 acres, was farmed for a while. So we have a large meadow that cows were in and that sort of thing. So a huge part of what we do is reintroducing some native species, weeding out invasives, helping natives to grow. We have memorial planting days twice a year where we have native plants and families can come up and plant those plants on their loved one's grave, which is a very special thing. So it's about how we're engaging with the land. But the biggest piece, that's Blue-Eyed Mary, which is gorgeous, which grows up there. We have lots of good spring ephemerals. And in case I forget to say it later, Larkspur is green space for the community too. So there's 5 miles of hiking trails. You can come up anytime and hike and walk. And we also have tours and that sort of thing. I'll tell you more about some of the other things that we have up there. So we talked about stewardship of the land, but the big thing is with families. So when I worked in a conventional setting, I would meet with a family, they would come in and there wasn't a lot of choice in it. It was come in, sit at this table with all this bright light, right? And it's like a business meeting. And, well, do you want pink crepe or white crepe in the casket? There wasn't much involvement or hands-on. And what we have found at Larkspur is that when people are grieving, if you can give them some choice and the permission almost to participate and get close, that it helps with that grief. This is a person that they love. So it makes sense that they can take care of this person in a way that's meaningful to them. And that's what we tell families. So for some families, that's creating this ritual. We have an interfaith chaplain that works with families to create meaningful rituals. And our burials at Larkspur, a lot of them are really simple. You can see they're pretty casual most of the time, but we've had lots of different faith leaders. We have these folks that come up and celebrate their friend every year and have a drink and a toast for her. We've had military honors, all kinds of faith leaders in different services there. So this is a family that is writing and on the casket before the burial there. And so when folks come to us and they talk about what they want to be buried in, another option is we've had people choose or bring their own material. There was a lady, Mary, that was buried last year that had a quilt. And she said she just wanted to be wrapped up in her quilt. And so when she got to Larkspur, she was wrapped in her quilt and buried in her quilt. This is a tapestry that was hung in this lady's house for about 40 years, and we incorporated it with our shroud. So we don't ever give there's a few things we give a hard no on. Sometimes I feel like I'm an HOA president or something. I'm like, no, you can't have wind chimes. No, you can't do this. But there's a lot of things that you can do, like these little touches right here that are really meaningful. If you see these pictures in the background, those are families. This is our answer to the funeral home slideshow. So families will send us photos and we antique them with coffee and hang them up at the graveside. So that's what those are, if you're seeing those. And I think you all probably know this is Sweet Toulouse in her shroud that her cousin made for her. She's up there at Larkspur. So families decorate the top of the grave with flowers. This is the bottom of a grave. So that's another thing that we do. We schedule one burial a day. A big part too is encouraging people to slow down. Usually when somebody calls us, it's kind of this frantic, like someone's died, we've got to do something. And we always tell them to take a deep breath. And we want to encourage them to slow down. So one of the rituals that we do ourselves at Larkspur is to decorate the bottom of the grave with flowers. And what that does is, for one thing, it's pretty. We encourage people to get close. We don't have any metal chairs or velvet ropes up there. It's just benches. And part of that getting close, it's hard to come up and look into a grave of your loved one. And so this makes it softer. And it also adds some nitrogen to the soil too. So that's something that we do on every burial. Some more of those photos. Back to the family engagement part. So when we talk to families who are planning to come to Larkspur, we talk to them about participation and about being able to be the ones that lower their loved one's body into the ground and to help fill the grave and those things. So this is a family doing just that. And then returning the soil. I talk to people that they'll be like, well, I don't think I can do that part, the putting the soil on my loved one. And we tell them that we'll meet them where they are that day, and that's fine. But then what I usually see happen is they'll start to do it, and there's something that it does to the grief. And I've seen people that are having a complicated grief that really work some of that out in the physical act of doing something. And so it helps. And we also walk up into the preserve together in a procession. And so some of that releases some of that nervous energy and grief. And so it's the physical part that I've seen that's really impactful, that really helps folks too. Now, I have, that's most of the slides. I have a video of a burial that I would like to show you. You may need a tissue, but I just wanted to say that if there's anybody who doesn't feel comfortable or is in a space to watch that right now, just give you the opportunity to step away if you need to. Okay. I'll say this too. This is a really sweet family, Corey Fikes family, who allows us to share this video of them. Corey Fidus, who we're burying, you'll see a younger girl here. She got married the day before her dad's burial. So all these flowers that you see are from her wedding, which was really sweet. Yeah.
Oh, what a great picture.
My name is John Christian, this is David. We're the team here at Larkspur, and we welcome you to Taylor Hollow. Today's ceremony is going to be a beautiful one as we're right at sunset and the light is casting across the meadow, and we're underneath a big tulip poplar. So we're gonna have a really beautiful walk up into the preserve, and then we'll all gather around. We will have some time for sharing, and then we'll begin the process of lowering Corey's body, his shell into the grave, and then we'll all take turns in participating in covering and filling the grave in completely before we leave this afternoon. I want to introduce our director that's here with us today from the funeral home that's providing help. If you need anything, you can reach out to him for assistance with this work today. I'll turn it over to David. Is there anything that I missed? Is it too I can hear?
If you're looking what I would stress to everybody is the difference for you. So anywhere you feel called to, you feel that it's meaningful, you want to for the community apps, for really excited to see so many. Yeah. But it's open from dawn to dusk every single day, so it's visit, I can be outside, so whenever you feel called to, whether it's to really important, to just go right, so to speak.
I want to sit down in your arms, happy and wonder, be safe and strong. I want to hear the name and recognize you as my own, baby. A home I felt so way to be surprised. No, I can't let go. You're the only thing you. Happy and love. To feel love within. I want to hold you, so we see the light, drop you in wonder, it's you every night. I want you to look at me and see yourself. I want to love you. Down. these kind of properties, you know, you feel like you're levels, you have no control in the end. But then when that pivots to their tree, by this, you know, like this, we are returning you to where you started. We are giving you beauty and nature and spiritual experience with the world, the planet we love so much. He's here. And it's great.
Well, I'll take a deep breath. So. It's like that. For things that what's gonna happen doesn't happen before we want. And well, we're, you know. Yes, so we get that question a lot, so, refrigeration works really well for that. So, those all, you know, when sound and vegetables, they have refrigeration, even some smaller. So refrigeration works well for them. Just like on the process. Well, survey at Larkspur, usually it's 5 to 7 days after they die. We've all we offered. There's a person that died in Austria. Probably were participating in the research. They wanted to bury at Larkspur, and it was really over 3 weeks. What we got at that from the bury, it is all fine. So there are some instances where and things like that, we may want to think maybe not a trial or something like that. But for the most part, this is really works really well and slows down the process, so we have time to plan the burial. Most, that's a good question to ask. You can see, so, you know, when somebody dies, depending on what their body went through, that can happen. It's never overwhelming, and there's only been a couple times where we've used something like essential oils to help with that, or even cedar flavors inside the casket to help with that. So there's natural ways we can deal with some of those things that happen, but most of the time, we don't have to do any of that.
Is it when the person dies, they start?
Well, the refrigeration halts that process.
Is it?
Yeah. No, it's refrigeration at funeral homes.
And it just stops them.
It slows it down enough to give us time. So it wouldn't do it forever,
Yeah.
but we have plenty of time, a few weeks, a week, yeah, plenty of time.
Okay, and then when do you wrap?
Yeah, so people that choose a shroud, we take that to the funeral home, usually a couple of days before the burial. Now, if somebody was a tissue donor or had an autopsy, we would recommend that family not use a shroud. Because there can be things that the shroud's not going to completely prevent, like leaking and things like that. So, but we take the shroud to the funeral home a couple of days before that.
Oh, yeah, I have a question. Thank you so much for sharing this. The video was very powerful.
Oh,
And so grateful that people would allow that.
I know, yes, we're very grateful to them that they did.
I feel like one of my first reactions, like, we've divorced ourselves so much from death.
There you
and,
go.
Like, to allow and invite that family and that community to be up close and personal and have those moments.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. So I think one of my questions was like, what about December, January, February?
Yeah, good question, good question. Thank you for that. That was well said. And one thing I usually say during the talk, what I think I skipped over a little, is that there is a disconnect from death. People used to be so much closer to it and have it in their homes and all of those sorts of things. And it's kind of like the disconnect from food, or the disconnect, you see more people doing like home births now and getting closer to where their food comes from. And this is just part of that. To me, that's how I look at it, is that it's just this coming back to being close to these things. I mean, this is an important event in people's lives, and to be able to be close. But yes, to answer your question, February, January. So in Tennessee, we're fortunate enough where the ground doesn't freeze so bad that we can't dig. We don't hand dig the graves. We have so many rocks here. Rocky Top is what David, our guy from Florida, he's like, they don't call it Rocky Top for nothing. But so we have a man that comes and digs the graves for us. What we do to make it a little more comfortable is we have things like blankets and hot cocoa for the families and things like that. So yes, we have them, we're able to have them year round. Yes.
Was curious, family funerals that I've been to, have all been really traditional, there are a lot of elderly people there.
Yeah.
So what is the accessibility for people, right, for
We have two utility vehicles. One is a very, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I
you're
forgot that I
fine.
was on Zoom.
Just checking questions.
We have a large utility vehicle that seats 8 people that has a wheelchair ramp. So we make it accessible. So we want whoever needs to be there and wants to be there to be able to come. So while most of us will walk up the hill slowly together and take our time, the folks who need a ride, we have that available for people too. And in the future, for family members who need to visit, who aren't able to make the walk, we have that for them where they can call us and get a ride up the hill.
And that's kind of like the way the ground is prepared, you also, it's a little big.
Oh, right. So the physical act of burying their loved one, most families participate in some way with it. Sometimes that's a little bit, and we're doing a lot of it. And sometimes we don't ever pick up a shovel and we can't take it out of their hands to even make them take a drink of water, right? So there's a big gap in that, but it's not a requirement by any means. It's just something that they're invited to do, and most people will do as much as they can and feel comfortable doing.
Are all the people who are there currently
Yes. Oh, I didn't know you knew David. Oh, good. I'll tell you. Oh, okay. Yeah, David the climber. I'll make a little comment too about David. And when he tells people how far the walk is up the hill at the intro, I've got to say this really quick because you know David. He'll say, yeah, we're going to walk up, and I give like the middle-aged woman version of that. I'm like, it's uphill, it's rocky. And yeah, David's a climber. He's our associate director, wonderful person. But yeah, all of us, as far as I know and what we've talked about, want this type of burial for ourselves. Yes.
It's really beautiful, and I agree. How placing flowers at the bottom of the grave, it's I'm curious, what do you see going on as a nationwide trend, or this natural variable that's really want to share with elsewhere? And like, are you seeing an industry shift towards this?
Yeah, thank you for your question. As a matter of fact, we are, so much so that after this, I'll join them at John Christian. We were invited to the mortuary school this year to do continuing education for funeral directors in Tennessee, which that is huge because it is an industry that kind of gets stuck a little in their ways, right? And we've always done it this way, which we all can do that in ways. So not to pick on them, but that's a huge deal. So I do see it growing. There's about 15, and what the word you want to use is conservation burial. That's what this is. Now, green or natural burial, that's wonderful too. That's, you're still, doing some of these things to keep these things out of the ground. I worked at a small funeral home as a funeral director, so I was able to do some burials at folks on their land and do some just green burial or greener burial, not intentionally, but maybe sometimes it was a money thing, and like maybe they didn't want a viewing, so they weren't going to have embalming, and maybe a vault wasn't important to them, and the little country cemetery didn't require a vault. So all of those things are important, but What we're doing is conservation. So natural or conservation burial, I think is a good term to use. So again, there's about 15 of these in the United States, a couple in the Carolinas, one in Georgia. The Conservation Burial Alliance is a good place to start to see where those places are. And when people call us and ask, we get lots of calls from other states and things. And the first thing I do is ask people if there's, where they're at. And if there's somewhere closer, I direct them there. To start with what's closest to them.
Is there any way to mix and match, like, when parents are committed to a cemetery, in a cemetery, do a conservation burial, if it's not, if it's a conservation?
So they couldn't, the land isn't under conservation, so it wouldn't be a conservation burial, but you can opt for things that are more green, right? It might not be 100%, but anything we can do helps, right? So maybe what type of casket they're buried in would be helpful. Ask if the cemetery requires a vault. Some of the smaller ones don't. And those kinds of things, maybe opt for no embalming. In Tennessee, I'll speak for Tennessee. In Tennessee, you only have to be involved if you're going to have a public viewing, which you envision with folks walking by your casket and seeing you. If that's important to some people to see someone, especially if they weren't here when the person died. So if you're not involved, you can have what they call an identification viewing, where a couple of immediate family members can come in and see that person. And of course, they're bathed and dressed and all of those things, and they can just have a few moments with them without being involved. So there's that too. So that's what I would recommend for that. Yes.
I have a question about that. I love that you add the native plants in and
Yeah.
that just the pictures you had, that looked really beautiful. I'm curious, when people come to visit their loved ones, if it's like very grown up, is it easy for them to find where they were buried?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that leads us into how we mark the graves. But so I always tell people, this is a wild place. It's maintained, but not manicured. So all of our hiking trails are maintained, but we have folks that are buried in the meadow, and come July and August, the meadow flowers and grasses are going to be about 5 or 6 feet tall. And so, they can traipse through the meadow, and that's something we talk about when they're choosing where their loved one is going to be buried in the preserve, and how accessible do they want it to be, and that sort of thing. We mark the graves in a few ways, so everything's GPS mapped. So when people come to Larkspur, to the property, we have a spot on our website that is locate a grave, and you can type your person's name in, and it's going to pull your map up and walk your dot to their dot. Separate from that, we have a little aluminum pin medallion that's about this big. It's on a stake. It goes in the middle of every grave, and that's the only non-compostable component. So over time, we will still be able to locate the graves and help people. They can use the app, or they can call us, or we send out one of our land stewards to help them find the grave. We also have stone markers that are flat filled stones, and those are optional. I'd say a little over half the folks choose to have one, and it just has their name and years on it. So we do mark the graves in those ways.
Is there an option to plant a tree?
Here's what I'll say about trees. There is, when we started out, we did a lot of tree plantings. And our focus right now is on native grasses and flowers, because a lot of the grazing and things impacted that when it was a farm. So mostly we do plants. A tree's not out of the question. One thing that we really talk to families about, though, that if they want a tree and that's really meaningful to them, is that to know that that tree is also a living thing, and it may not make it. So really think about how that will impact your grief if you've lost your person and now they're a tree. So to connect them with a specific tree, it's kind of tricky sometimes. So we've done tree plantings away from the grave in another part of the preserve. So it's just something that we would talk through with people. So yes, we have done some native trees.
There was a vendor somewhere that would like vacation in a pond with your.
Oh, yeah, the tree pod burial. That was started in Italy, and that actually never came to market. And the problem with that is that to put a body in a fetal position in this giant pod, you imagine how hard that would be. And then you would have to bury, it would be so tall, you'd have to bury it so deep that you would lose that where the soil's alive part, right? So to really go back to so what I talk to people about is to not think of it as just, we get people that call that want to be a tree, and I get it, but we talk about being part of the whole forest. it's all interconnected under the ground, right? So it doesn't have to be just on top of you, like you're becoming part of this whole place. And also I'll say that for the cremation tree pots too, is that, again, cremains are harmful to plants into the soil. So burying cremains and then with a soil amendment, which anyone, I know there's still people that want to put cremains on their own land or on different places, to mix them with that before you do it. Put the tree off somewhere else is probably the better idea with that.
We had a talk from Flowers Forward, and you still.
Yeah. So yeah, Forward Flora. Yeah. They have been so sweet and have donated flowers to us lots of times for our burials. So we get, we purchase some of the flowers, but we're very fortunate to have folks like that who will donate flowers. They do breakdown of weddings and things. And so we're able to repurpose some of those flowers, which is really nice. Yeah. Thank you for bringing them up.
Is the, so when you're preparing the body,
Who's my booby?
do you use all natural type resources that decompose? Or, you know, I know you put it in those boxes and stuff, but what happens?
So at the funeral home, we encourage people to be, if they're, you know, whatever they're clothed in for the burial, for it to be a natural fiber. We would remove a pacemaker if somebody had a pacemaker, because it's a battery. A lot of people have knee and hip replacements and things like that. That would be very invasive to try to remove something like that. We feel like the impact's minimal and it's gonna just stay solid and it stays. So we don't do anything with those. But yes, so that the lining of the caskets is a natural fiber linen. We're encouraging people to wear natural clothing, and the funeral home takes care of that side of things. So I'll say that most folks that come to Larkspur still use a funeral home, and we've been able to create these really good relationships with some local funeral homes who are very supportive of what we're doing. So a family can call them and they're going to know what they need, most importantly what they don't need, and they provide things like transportation, death certificates, casketing the person, and that kind of thing. So we've had a few families who have done it themselves. And so in Tennessee, what makes it a little more challenging is the death certificate side of things, but that's something we can talk through with families. If they're all on board, it has to be a really good support system and really be ready to take that on to handle it yourself. We don't want to discourage that. We guide people through that. We've guided families who've chosen to be buried on their own land, things like that, to have home funerals. And even if they're not planning to be buried at Larkspur, we still provide that as, you know, part of the education and what we do. Yes. We do, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. So for one thing, I'll start with what we have at our office here behind Sylvan Supply in Nashville. We have an interfaith chaplain. We have a book club. We have a death cafe, Death Over Donuts. So you can check those things out that we have here at the office. And then at the preserve, we have monthly informational hikes where you can come up and myself or David guide those hikes and take you through the preserve, answer questions, all of that sort of thing. All of this is on our website, larkspurconservation.org. You can sign up. In the summertime, we'll have some butterfly hikes and bird hikes and things like that too. So yes, thank you.
One more question. I want to mention too that your colleague Meg she came to actually in Memphis.
Oh yeah.
At our Sunday school.
Yeah.
So I was ready for the video.
Okay, you see your video. Yeah, I know. I was finishing up the presentation, looking yesterday, and I'm like, oh, here I go. My desk in the office. It is. It's very fast.
The thing that really shook me too was I have no awareness of how much concrete and other materials are used.
Yeah.
You mentioned that enough to build the.
And I think that's actually, I said concrete while I was standing up there. I do better when I'm sitting and just talking to people, but it's actually the metal from like enough metal every year to build the Golden Gate Bridge. You think if everybody, I mean, if large funeral homes are doing 300 or 400 calls a year, look how many funeral homes there are in Nashville. It's a lot. It really is a lot.
Yeah, that was more, I guess, the comment than the question.
Yeah.
I was just really struck by.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know that, right? We don't.
Right.
Thank you. We always give our speakers a freshwater Tennessee pearl. Oh, thank you again. Really want to see that.
Yeah, it's fun and like and light and interesting. So yeah, a lot of our families and our folks are the events like that and book club and this. Fun to see.
A really great story about Jenny as well. Over a year ago, I went to visit for the Bucksburg office, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to go ahead and buy like a plot." And she's like, "You're not buying it," and she's right. I'm still here.
Somebody. We know people's lives change a lot, so it's not that people won't let you pre-purchase if you're under a certain age. It's just that there's time, we're not running out of space. $4,000 and all of our pricing too is on our website today. It's pretty simple. We don't break it down. Yeah.
My name is Kara. I'm happy to serve as the TWIG Vice President this year. I'll quickly go through some announcements and then you can get another cup of coffee or something. We are Tennessee Women in Green. We serve to empower, inspire, and connect women who are committed to environmental sustainability. Whether that applies to you or not, we're happy that you're today. And we are always welcoming of anyone who comes to our meetings or wants to be a part of Tennessee Women in Green. Thank you to our business sponsors and partners. You might see some companies on there that you're very well aware of, especially Anna with Motive Interiors. We're very happy to have you here today. It's of course the National Food Project. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor or talking to your company about becoming a sponsor, come see one of our members here, and we'll be happy to talk with you about it. If you're a board member, raise your hand. One of us will be happy to talk to you about it. Thank you to our new and renewing members. We had a lot last month. That was a lot. And I see a few people in this room who renewed their sponsor, their membership. So grateful. We are growing. Tell your friends about us. And speaking of which, you go to the next slide. Oh, there's our annual membership options right there. There's a QR code. So you can take a picture of that with your phone or however you do that. And we have very affordable membership options, right? So you could get $25, even on up to $100 or $150. If you were a student or if you were in transition, we still have an affordable $10 option for you as well. It covers the whole year and helps us put on programs like this. We have a Kroger benefit option for you. So if you like to go Krogering, go ahead and you can scan that code there. And any purchase that you make will help benefit TWIG.
Yeah, we just got our check last month. It was like $150, which is actually pretty impressive.
That's like a big membership
Yeah.
for the whole year. Seed fund grants. So we provide seed funding to women desiring continuing education opportunities in sustainability, whether that's a certification or you want to go to a conference or take a fun class. So qualifying undertakings include, I already went through that. We have a rolling application. You could get a total grant one time up to $1,000. You must provide a minimum of 30 days notice. You must be a resident of Tennessee or enrolled in a collegiate program in Tennessee, and you have to be a current member as well. But you can scan that code if you're interested in our seed fund. And then our upcoming program next month, you don't want to miss this. Lori Troxel will be here. She's from Vanderbilt's Practice of Civil and Environmental Engineering. So we're very excited to have her speak with us next month on May 2nd. And then upcoming events. There's a lot, Nashville Living Futures, April 14th. So you'll be able to learn again alongside engineering students. This is hosted by the Living Building Challenges, and it's going to be hosted at Old School Farm. We have a hike-a-thon the whole month of April. 10 Greenland Conservancy's free month-long hiking competition that helps to raise funds for protected lands here in Tennessee. We have a Grow Enrichment volunteer opportunity on May 7th. And you all know Earth Day is right around the corner. And we will be present at the Centennial Park's Earth Day event on the 19th. So yeah, take a picture of that. Okay. And last but not least, we do have an Instagram account. This is a great way for you to stay in contact with us if you, and also sign up for our newsletter, please. That's a monthly newsletter as well. So you're welcome to take a screenshot of that. Thank you. We're glad that you spent your Friday morning with us. Get some more coffee.